Our next speaker is Eric Moutsos. He's a former Salt Lake City police officer who was placed on administrative leave for acting in accordance with his conscience. The story is told in his book, which I have right here, my very own signed copy. And he brought a bunch of copies that he's happy to sell if anybody would like one. Tonight I asked him to bring some. So it's called Dispatched, Conscience or Conformity. Eric enjoys blogging, working out, reading, and giving commentary on current events. He is the founder of the Utah Business Revival, and he drove all the way from St. George today just to speak to us. You can find more information from Eric at Eric Moutsos, Moutsos.com. Please welcome Eric Moutsos.
Thank you so much. So like she said, my website's been hijacked, by the way, so don't even go there for a couple days because it's taken over. I don't know what happened. She said, my name is Eric Moutsos. I am a recovering government employee. And it's been about 6 years of recovery. Still not fixed. I was at the Salt Lake City Police Department for 7 years. And it was probably one of the greatest. There was such bittersweet memories. How many have worked in the government? Okay, a couple. So most of you probably understand what I'll probably say, but I'm not here to talk about the government too much. I was actually asked to speak about intentional health. And so, as I'm about to speak to you about intentional health, just don't mind me at all. A few things. Ever since I was young, I didn't realize that I had a hard time with depression and anxiety ever since I was little. As long as I can remember, I didn't know what it was. And so that's what I want to talk about how it's been a huge thorn in my side, in the flesh, whatever you want to call it, for my whole life. But it's also helped me challenge myself to push harder and harder and harder to get out of those ruts. And so I hope some of my stories will help you if you're going through any of that, or if you do go through it, then you can reflect on some of these stories. When I got into junior high and high school, I turned to, not a ton, but I turned to drugs and alcohol because I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And right when I started to get onto a really dangerous path, one of my best friends died in a car wreck. He was drunk driving, and it was a huge wake-up call for me. Because I could see that I was going down the exact same road. And we were doing these backyard fights, like brawls. So we would like challenge each other with boxing gloves, and we'd fight each other for, underground money, which is, all of this is illegal, by the way. And I boxed this Polynesian kid from my school. He was one of my friends. We weren't too close, but he came to my house the next day, and he challenged me to read and pray about the scriptures. And I did not want him anywhere near my house, because I was looking down at the book, and he was in a white shirt and tie, and I was very uncomfortable. But his words penetrated me. And I started to think about it, and I started to ponder it, and I started to read a little bit here and there. And I won't go too far into it, but something happened to me where I could feel that I knew unquestionably that God lives. And that was kind of the start of my change. And so I went to my bishop, and I told him about the experience. And I told him I didn't know what to do, so I started to prepare to go on a mission for my church. And it was extremely hard to change, to get into a different mindset. And I started getting really excited about it. I started to read, I started to get pumped up. I'd see videos of these missionaries go. And so I went on a mission. And when I was out in the field, I started to have massive panic attacks. And I started to cry every 10, 15 minutes, and I didn't know why. I was just crying and crying. And they came to me and they said, well, what have you done? You know, they sat me down. What have you done? You had to have done something. I didn't do anything. I can't stop crying. And it wasn't the Spirit. I was going through a massive depression. I ended up coming home from my mission from depression. And it was one of the hardest things that I had gone through, because here you are giving your farewell, and all of a sudden you're back at home, and it was awful. And I just hid myself in my basement for months. And I was on my computer, and I came across this Yahoo karaoke chat room. Never even heard of anything like this. Well, there's people singing through the computer, country music. Like, what? And they were awful. And it got down to my turn, and they said, it's your turn. And I never sang, and I just said, pass. Well, then I started to practice the Garth Brooks song over and over and over and over. And then the next day or two, I sang that song into the microphone. And then all of a sudden, all the little emojis were coming up, cheering, you know. And it sparked something in me. And then I started to practice more, and more and more and more. And it lit a fire in me that I can't explain. But music, it healed me. And so I entered into a karaoke contest at a bar, and I won. And I had my dad come, and that was uncomfortable, but I won the thing. And then I entered into a contest called Nashville Star. And I won the regional finals. I got into the regional finals. And I got a phone call from a man named Evander Holyfield. Has anyone ever heard of Evander Holyfield? The only 4-time heavyweight champ of the world. We used to pay money. We'd get a whole bunch of people and we'd watch his fights. At my house, we'd watch him and Mike Tyson, you know, get his ear bit off. And all of a sudden, he's on the phone. And he said, Eric, this is Evander Holyfield. I heard your music. I want to meet you. And I thought, there's no way this is real. I thought I was getting punked. And lo and behold, it was him. He flew us out to his house in Atlanta. I didn't really know how to play the guitar very well. I knew like 3 chords, so I'm sitting there, you know, shaking in his basement, and I'm singing this song. And I was so scared, but he just starts smiling, and he just gets up in the middle of the song. I'm like, so I start following him. I'm like, what did you think? He's like, I want to help you. I want to put you on my record label. And so all of a sudden now I'm on a small record label, and I'm going back and forth to Nashville. And I ended up opening up for a man named Colin Ray. Has anyone heard of him? 16 number 1 hits. And I wasn't very good, but I'm convinced that all of those connections were divine, because Heavenly Father knew that I needed help. And when I look back at it, sometimes in life when you look forward, you can't see, obviously, why you meet certain people, but when you look back, you can see all the connection as to why. So then I met my wife, we got married, we had our first, and I was going back and forth to Nashville still, trying to pursue music. And the man that found Tim McGraw, his name's Mike Borchetta, he wanted to help promote me. And he called me and he said, Eric, we're going to start you on this radio tour starting this date. Well, it was my daughter's first birthday. And I said, I can't come. It's her first birthday. And he got really kind of upset. And he said, I don't think you understand what this is going to take. And I just knew in my heart that it wasn't the right thing. And I was so sad about it because I wanted to do that so bad, but I just knew it wasn't the right thing to do. And so I told him I can't come. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So then this man in my ward, he was on the Salt Lake City Police Department for the SWAT team and the gang unit, and he asked me to come do a ride-along with him. And it was one of the most incredible nights of my whole life. I mean, we were going from like call to call to call. A man with a knife. I know this sounds weird. Like, why would you want to go to a man with a knife? But it was so exciting. It was just like, it was awesome. And I didn't want to come home. We did a bar check. So we just went. He just wanted us, and I had a bulletproof vest on, and I'm walking, and I thought I was so cool, like I was a cop when I wasn't. And I came home that night. I said, "Sweetie, I think I could do this." And she said, "You'd be a good cop." And I'd never thought about it before. And I registered for school and all these things, and I got into it. And it was amazing. Because I learned in police work how to serve people and how to love people, and it changed me as a person. And about 2 or 3 years into it, I was on the bicycle unit. And my sergeant, he came to us and he didn't ask, he told us that we needed to get 5 misdemeanors per day. And I told him that it wasn't a good idea, that we had an actual quota for arrests. And everything changed because I challenged it. I challenged his order. And I turned in 3. And I was already the #1 guy on the whole squad. In fact, out of 19 cops, I was #1 out of drug arrests. I was #1 out of misdemeanors, tickets, everything. I was #1. And I challenged him, and everything changed for me. I started to get blackballed off of all of the lists. I was getting passed up for all of these things, and my name was getting tarnished. And so I tried out for the motorcycle unit, and I couldn't get picked up there. And I went to the deputy chief and asked why. And they said that I was insubordinate, but there was nothing on my file. Nothing. I had never been to internal affairs in 7 years. And long story short, I think when I met with him, I think he knew that there was going to be a problem if I didn't get picked up, but I didn't tell him that. But they picked me up on the motorcycle unit, and I felt like I had just dug my own grave. And that's when the persecution happened, more than I've ever felt. There's about 25 officers, and I was not welcome. I could feel it every day. I would walk in, and they would say, "Have you read your Golden Bible today?" They would take the Angel Moroni sticker and put it on my helmet and say really mean things. It didn't bother me that much because I know who I am. But the persecution started happening. This is in Salt Lake City. And then I got the call, or I got the order, I should say. They wanted 5 of us to come in on our off day, on a Sunday, to celebrate in the LGBT parade. It wasn't just to protect the parade. They wanted 5 of us to be participants and lead the parade. And so what I did, I went to my friend who's on the motorcycle unit, and we switched spots. So when we switched, they wanted to know why. So I had to write this email, and I started it out. You have to understand that I love all people. I love everybody. But if this was an abortion parade, I would feel the same exact way. I would ask not to be in the parade. He sent a pretty fiery email back. A few days later, I got called into the chief's office, and I was placed on administrative leave for discrimination. And my entire world turned upside down. I thought that I had gone through a depression for my mission, but this was 10 times worse than I'd ever felt. And I lost about 25 pounds. I did not know how I was going to provide for my family. I resigned from the Salt Lake City Police Department because once you get on their list, and that's why I said, have you ever been a government employee? Once you get on their list, there's really no hope. It's just a matter of time before they find you on something else. Because if it's not A, they're going to get you for Z. And that's how it works. So I resigned, and I got out of it, and I couldn't get hired with jobs that I wanted, especially in the corporate world. And then I got approached to start selling solar panels door to door, and I really, really didn't want to do that. But 3 different people came to me from 3 different avenues asking me. So I said, okay, there's something with this. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it. And so I prayed about it. I felt like that was the right. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And so I started knocking doors when I was 34 years old. I started knocking on people's doors. And every single time I would go out, I would cry. Because I was so, I would get anxiety, I would get the depression, but it was so hard. I don't know if you've ever sold. But then when I started to actually make money, something happened. Something clicked inside of me. And it was amazing. It wasn't about what I was doing, but it was about that I realized that I could take control of my own life. And that nobody was going to stop me. And that first year I made over $300,000. I thought I was going to go to jail. Because I was barely making it as a cop. But then I just drove harder and harder and harder and knocked more doors and just kept going and going and going. I said, sweetie, we're going to get out of debt from this. And anyway, long story short, it's been a really good career to the point now where I'm able to do these business revivals all over the state of Utah. And I haven't made any money this year, but we've been okay still on our reserve. But I just wanted to tell that story because I'm convinced that when we go through depressions and we go through the anxiety, that we have to, the things that scare us the most are the things that we have to do. I used to have this reoccurring dream all the time that I'm on a beach and I'd look up and I'd see this monstrous wave. I mean, like 200 feet, 300 feet, just this huge giant wave coming, and I'd just start running. And then inevitably it would crash down on me, and I'd wake up with just panic. And I'd have this dream over and over and over. I didn't know why. And so finally in my dream, the wave rose up, or the wave came up. And I remember thinking, I'm dreaming. And then I looked at the wave, and there was a giant dark black hole in the wave. And I just started running as fast as I could towards this thing. And I just dove head first into this wave. And then all of a sudden I popped out on the other side and I'm just swimming. And then I came down, and then another one came and I did the same thing. And I came back up, and I wasn't afraid anymore. And I've never had that dream again. And so I'm convinced that the things that scare us the most are the things that we have to go head in. And I don't know what that is for everybody. I was scared to even come here. Like I've been asked to speak at these things, and I've always just wanted to talk, because I have notes prepared, but I've always just wanted to talk. And so I came in here like 2 hours ago, and I looked in here and my heart started beating really fast, and I just hid. I'm like, I can't be in there. It makes me too nervous. But I wanted to come because I want to challenge my fears so I can grow. Let me look here. See, now I'm going down to my notes. After that, then I go down to my notes. So I'm convinced that we have to face our fears. And when it comes down to how this is tied to intentional health, you always hear mind, body, spirit, right? Mind, body, spirit. And how do you balance these things? And I don't know the answer. I really don't. But the things that help me is when I wake up, I just try to be grateful for everything that I have. I just try to go through, in my prayers, I try to just think, even when I'm going through a really dark time, a depression, where I can wake up and I want to just cry, and I don't want to get out of bed, I just start thinking of all the things that I have, and all the blessings that I have. And then for some reason, it'll just click me out of it. And then I start moving, and then I start calling my friends. It's really important to have friends that you can call and just express things, and express your heart to them. And, so surround yourself with, 3 or 4 friends, 5, and you can call them and talk to them and say, I'm having a hard time. And because most of the time, most people are having a hard time. That's what I've found. Most people struggle. Most marriages are hard. And especially right now during COVID, we have to have each other. And so when COVID hit, I got really, really depressed again because I could see what was going to happen. And I prayed about it. I really like memes, by the way. Memes are like one of my favorite things in the world. I'm addicted to them. And I'm like a professional memer online. I just meme and post. But I realized that during COVID, that memes weren't going to do it. And so we started to put on these rallies. Is anybody a member of the Utah Business Revival?
Yes!
Woo! That's all. So many. If you're on Facebook and you're not a member of the Utah Business Revival, do it. Because the Utah Business Revival has helped. It's probably selfish, but it's helped me so much get out of my depressions and out of the anxiety, because I believe that in order to get out of depression and anxiety, you have to have faith. How many people have heard, we just got to have faith during COVID? We just got to have faith. Let it all work out. There's nothing that bothers me more. Because their definition of faith is sitting there waiting for something to happen. But what I testify to you is that faith is action in what you actually believe. And so we've been doing these rallies, and it's been amazing to watch, because what I've found is that people are starting to wake up and realize that you have rights. You have individual rights. And most people don't know that because they don't teach it in school. The government sure doesn't want you to know that you have an individual rights. And we've been putting on these big business revivals where we just kind of take over areas, almost in protest. And these businesses come and they bring their booths and we help revive them. And people will come after, like, these business owners, and they'll say, thank you so much. And some of them are in tears. They say, I can now pay my mortgage because of this. And that makes me feel so happy inside, because they're paying for their family to live. And people say, well, do you really think what you're doing is really helping? I say, yeah, I do. I do, because it helped them. And I don't care if it's helping 1 million businesses, it helped that business. And at our first rally, we had about 5,000 people come, and the news didn't report on it. But the second one, they did. Because at that rally, this man comes up to me, and he has this entertainment business. So he does stages. Like, people will rent out their stage, but they haven't been booked since March. And so he came and he said, well, I have a stage. And then this idea clicked. And I just saw it. I said, we're going to have a concert. And so, you know who I called? I called Colin Ray. I said, Colin, what do you think about having the first concert since COVID-19 in America? And he said, brother, I'm in. And so, did anybody watch that whole thing in the news, how we were getting canceled by the government every which way we were going? It was awful. But it was so telling of how much control these people have, and how much control they think they have, and how powerful they are right now. And it got canceled 2 different times. A judge stepped in. A district judge came in and said, if you hold this concert in Tooele, you will go to jail. And one of the, I think it was Debbie Dujanovic, I hope I said that name right, but she said, are you really, you're a former policeman, are you really willing to go to jail for this? I said, yeah, I am. I said, I don't want to go to jail. Jail stinks. It's an awful place. I mean, literally, it stinks. And I've taken hundreds of people to jail. I don't want to do that, but I'm willing to. I'm willing to for our freedom and to wake people up. And we ended up having the concert with a man named Paul Cousins. I don't know if you know who Paul Cousins is, but he's down in he's the Iron County Commissioner. And Paul Cousins is amazing. But he pretty much single-handedly made that happen. And he got everybody rallied up, and we had the concert, and it was one of the greatest moments of 2020 because the spirit of liberty was there. I'll bet you guys have felt the spirit in here. I don't even see one mask. And even if you have a mask, I'm not making fun of you, but this is beautiful. You're rebels. You're all rebels. You guys are crazy. Aren't we in Utah County? Yeah. Ooh. Woo.
Arrest us.
I want to arrest the government. I want to go up and arrest my goodness. I believe that our freedom right now and our liberty and our health has to be intentional, okay? We have to band together right now more than we've ever banded together. Because the things that are coming that I don't want to talk about right now because I want to keep this positive, we have to stay together as a group. Because it is only going to get worse. But it's okay, because I'm convinced that God knew that this was going to happen. It's already written about, and that each and every one of us were already prepared to do what we're going to do. And so my plea to each and every one of us is that, number one, we pray on a daily basis and ask God for inspiration. We cast evil out of our lives. We change our ways. The things that we know that we need to change, which we all do, we just stop it and move forward and repent. Because that's how we can clean ourselves. Mind, body, spirit. You can't have a clean body and a clean mind if your spirit's not clean. So we need to say spirit, mind, body. That's what I think. And whatever you call it, I'm not here to preach to you. If you believe in a higher source, or if you believe that you're the source, just clear yourself from the things that you know that you need to change. And then as soon as that happens, then you can change your family. And as soon as that happens, you can start changing communities intentionally. And another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is service. Because when we are serving other people, something happens inside. And everybody knows this. But every day we have to commit to try to think of other people, not just ourselves, but other people. And when we do that, inspiration and revelation will come to us. I know that that's true. And so I don't know what the future holds for us. But I'm very, very optimistic that no matter what happens, we can make it through this. About 400 years ago, November 11th, the Mayflower touched down. And there was 51 people. And those 51 people could not get their crops to grow. They could not get anything going. And they were scared because they were going to die. And what happened was they came together and they prayed to God and they asked for help. And this is recorded that a storm came in and there was a light rain for about 2 to 3 weeks, and it allowed everything to go. And everything started growing. When I was in the police academy, we had a man named Chief Randy Johnson. He came and he asked this question to us. He said, "Who do you work for?" And a couple cadets raised their hands and said, "Well, we work for the community. We work for the people." One guy said, "We work for you." And he just rolled his eyes. And he said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "You work for God. Never forget it." And I remember I just got chills. And then I got hired at Salt Lake City. You can imagine how much preaching was there. I never heard that again until one of my friends who committed suicide, one of my officer friends committed suicide. When they were saying his number, it was like, I don't remember what his badge number was, like Juliet 55, Juliet 55, Juliet 55, end of watch, Godspeed. And it hit me. So we talk about God at the very, very beginning of career, and we talk about God at the very, very ending, but nobody talks about him between. That's what we're missing, and that's one of the reasons why we're in such a disaster right now, because we have left God out of it. And we're afraid. And we cannot be afraid. We have to bring back God into our communities. And we need to start talking about politics, and we need to start talking about religion everywhere we go. And that's my message to you, intentionally. And that's how we find full freedom, full health. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you.